When someone you love in Australia desperately needs your help, that distance can feel, well, just impossible. Today, we're going to break down a visa pathway designed to close that gap, Australia's Subclass 116 Carer Visa. Let's dig into what you really need to know.
So, just imagine this for a second. You have a relative in Australia, someone you're really close to, and they have a serious long-term medical issue. They need you, and you're being told there is literally no one else there who can give them the kind of full-time care they need. It's a really tough spot to be in, and it raises a massive question. How do you get there to help?
Well, Australia actually has a specific pathway for this exact kind of situation, and for many families, it's an absolute lifeline. So let's take a closer look at what this visa is all about.
Okay, the details here are everything. First off, this isn't for something temporary, like a broken arm. It has to be a long-term medical condition. But here's the real hurdle, the biggest one to clear. Your relative must have no other reasonable care options in Australia. That means you have to prove that no other family member, no community service, not even a hospital can provide the care that's needed. That's a really high bar.
But if you can meet those really tough requirements, the outcome is a game changer. This isn't a temporary fix. We're talking about a permanent move. So let's talk about the promise. What does this new life in Australia actually look like?
The stability this visa gives you is just incredible. You can stay in Australia indefinitely. You become a permanent resident. You get the right to work and study so you can fully jump into the community. You can enroll in Medicare, Australia's public healthcare system, which is a massive plus. And down the road, you could even sponsor other relatives and, if you choose, apply for citizenship. It's a really solid foundation for a brand new life. The benefits are crystal clear, right? But the path to actually getting there is super specific, and you've got to navigate it really carefully. So let's walk through the application journey step by step. Now, before we go any further, this is the single most important rule to get your head around. This is the big one. It's an offshore visa. That means you cannot be in Australia when you submit your application, and you also must be outside Australia when they make the final decision. Getting this wrong could sink your entire application. It's that critical.
On paper, the process itself looks pretty straightforward. You lodge your application from your home country and make sure to include any eligible family members right then and there. You'll pay the first part of the visa fee up front, and then comes the wait. A long wait for assessment, and they might ask you for more information along the way. Finally, right before they make a decision, they'll ask you to pay that second installment.
And that brings us to the reality of the whole situation. Because while the process is structured, it is not fast and it is not free. We've got to be honest about the costs, the queues, and the massive amount of patience you're going to need.
The cost starts at over 2,000 Australian dollars, but pay attention to that little plus sign. That's key, because that figure is just for the main applicant. It doesn't include the charge for each family member applying with you, and it doesn't cover all the other mandatory costs like health checks, police certificates, or biometrics. So the payment is split into two parts. You pay the first bit when you apply, and the second, much larger payment is only requested right at the very end. Now, there's a really important detail here. In cases of proven severe financial hardship, the department might think about waiving that second fee for the main applicant. But let's be clear, that is a very high bar to meet, and this doesn't apply to any other family members on the application. So why the enormous wait? This quote from the Department of Home Affairs really says it all. There are just way more people applying for these kinds of visas than there are places available in Australia's migration program each year. It's a simple case of supply and demand. This leads to a formal system they call capping and queuing. Capping means the government sets a hard limit on how many of these visas they grant in a year. Once they hit that cap, every other eligible application goes into a line, the queue. And the official advice is pretty blunt. A very long wait isn't just possible, it's expected. This is a crucial reality to plan for, because the needs of your relative could change a lot during that time.
So, after that long, patient wait, you finally get the news. Your visa has been granted. It's a huge moment, an incredible feeling. But what happens next?
The moment your visa is granted, a whole new timeline starts. You'll need to make your first trip to Australia by a specific date, which is usually within 12 months. That first entry kicks off a 5-year travel facility, which lets you leave and re-enter Australia freely. After those 5 years are up, if you want to keep traveling internationally, you'll need to either apply for a resident return visa or maybe start thinking about Australian citizenship.
And this is one last really critical detail. Your permanent residency, for the purpose of calculating when you're eligible for citizenship, doesn't actually start on the day your visa is granted.
It starts on the day you physically land in Australia and activate that visa. That's the day the official clock starts ticking.
Look, let's be real. The care visa is a long, demanding, and expensive journey. It requires a mountain of paperwork, an ocean of patience, and a deep, deep commitment. But it all comes back to that very first question we asked. This is a path you take not because it's convenient, but because it's for care. Which leaves us all with one final thought to consider. For family, is any journey too long?